onset of the 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France, which came to be known as the Annales School, named after its scholarly journal, Annales d'Histoire économique et sociale. That is, Annals of Economic and Social History. This school paved the way to a new direction in history writing. According to the Annales School, history was not only about the occurrences of political events, kings, great leaders, and accordingly, politics, diplomacy, and wars, but also the climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communication, social divisions, and their psychology, etc., that were prevalent during their respective historical timelines. This school was co-founded by French historians Marc Bloch and Lucien Febvre. Feminist Historiography. Though history has been defined time and again as chronicling the progress of human civilizations with the passage of time, critics argue that it only encompasses the achievements and failures of man, whilst completely and for some, conveniently neglecting the very same with regards to the female gender. Throughout the ages, history had often glorified the lives of various regents, kings, emperors, etc., whilst relegating their better halves, namely queens or consorts, to an inferior and at times almost oblivious position. Therefore, these critics argued that historical narrative should also include the contributions of the female gender on par with their male counterpart to present a complete and unbiased form of historiography. These critics were staunch supporters of the feminist school of historiography. Feminist historiography is defined as the restructuring of history from the perspective of women. Writings of the 20th century French feminist historiographer Simone de Beauvoir, 1908 to 1986, helped establish the fundamental building blocks of modern feminism. Feminist historiography not only emphasized on the inclusion of women in history, but also on the rethinking of the male-dominated perspective of history. It aimed to propel in-depth historical research, to focus on various aspects of women's life such as their employment, their role in trade unions, institutions that took up their cause, their family life, etc. Post-1990 CE historical writings would generally portray women as members of an independent social class. Michel Foucault, 1926 to 1984. The 20th century French historian Michel Foucault brought forth a new concept in historiography. In his book Archaeology of Knowledge, 1969, he argued that the prevailing practice of arranging historical events in a chronological order was erroneous. He drew attention to the fact that archaeology did not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth. Rather, it simply attempted to explain various transitions taking place in the past. Foucault firmly believed that the method of explaining historical transitions was essential, which he defined as the archaeology of knowledge. Foucault included the up until now unacknowledged areas of human history such as psychological disorders, science of medicine, prison administration, etc. to his historical analysis. Conclusion. Thus, we can conclude that the scope of historiography kept expanding on a continuous basis and still is today. With the passage of time, historiography on various subjects such as literature, architecture, sculpture, drawing and painting, music, dance, drama, films and television, etc. also came into practice. In our session today, we focused on the unknown facet of history, namely historiography, which took us down this protracted road of human evolution through the passage of time and in turn made us aware of man's constant struggle to safeguard his legacy. At one point during this session, we witnessed the evolution of historiography taking place in the Western Hemisphere, particularly in Europe. In our next session, we'll focus on the evolution of historiography that took place in our very own India. I assure you that this journey would be equally exciting as the one we've just witnessed today. I'll be looking forward to share this experience with you all during our next session.
Good morning, student. We are going to learn the last part of our lesson, and before this we learn some important point of our first lesson, just as tradition of historiography, modern historiography, development of scientific perspective in Europe and historiography, notable scholars Rene Descartes, Voltaire, George William Friedrich, then Leopold von Ranke, Karl Marx. We know the opinions about historiography of these notable scholars. Now the next point is Annals School. Annals School. At the onset of the 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France. At the onset of the 20th century, means in the 20th century, a new school of historiography arose in France, which is known as Annals School. And this school is known as Annals School. Annals School gave a new direction to history writing. And when this school started, this gave new direction to history writing. It was recognized now that history is not only about the political events, kings, great leaders, and accordingly politics, diplomacy, and wars. And through these schools, it was recognized that history is not only about the kings, about the past events, about the great leaders, about the politics, diplomacy, or the wars which took place, but also about the climate, local people, agriculture, trade, technology, means of communication, social divisions, and their collective psychology. But it also include, means the history also include trade, agriculture, climate, local people, technology, means of communication, then social divisions and their collective psychology. In the historical times, the Annals School was started by French historians, and this Annals School was started by the French historians. Next point is Feminist Historiography. Feminist Historiography. Feminist historiography means the restructuring of the history from the perspective of women. Feminist historiography means restructuring, giving new look to the history from the perspective of women. The writing of Simone de Beauvoir helped in establishing the fundamentals of feminism. The writing of Simone de Beauvoir helped in establishing the fundamentals of feminism. She was French. She was a French writer. The feminist historiography emphasizes not only on the inclusion of women in history but also on the rethinking of the male-dominated perspective of history. The feminist historiography not only emphasizes not only the inclusion of women but also rethinking of the male-dominative perspective of history. It drove historical research to focus in depth on various aspects of women's life, such as their employment, their role in trade union institutions, working for their course, their family life, etc. It also drove historical research. It also made historical research which focus on various aspects of women's life, such as their employment, their role in the trade union, institution working for their cause, their family life, and such others. In the historical writings after 1990, women were portrayed as an independent social class. And in the historical writing after 1990, women were portrayed as independent social class. Next is Michel Foucault. And the last point of today is Michel Foucault. The French historian of the 20th century, Michel Foucault, brought forth a new concept of historiography. This French historian he also gave new concept of historiography. He, in his book Archaeology of Knowledge, argued that the prevailing practice of arranging historical events in a chronological order is not right. He, in his famous book Archaeology of Knowledge, he argued that prevailing practice of arranging historical events. Before him, some historians told that prevailing practice of arranging historical events in chronological order. He criticized this and he argued that prevailing practice of arranging historical events in chronological order is not right. He drew attention to the fact that archaeology does not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth. He gave importance to the fact that archaeology does not strive to reach the ultimate historical truth. It is unable to came to know the historical truth, but attempts to explain various transitions in the past. But it attempts to explain the various transitions in the past. Foucault felt that explaining the transitions in history is more important, and he gave importance to explain the transitions in history. He called his method the archaeology of knowledge, and to this method he called this method the archaeology of knowledge. Foucault subjected the so far acknowledged areas by historians such as psychological disorder, science of medicine, prison administration, etc. to historical analysis. He subjected the so far acknowledged areas. He gave importance to some historical areas just as psychological disorder, science of medicine, prison administration to historical analysis. Thus, the scope of historiography kept continuously expanding, and in this way the scope of historiography kept continuously expanding. Writing of histories of various subjects like literature, architecture, sculpture, drawing and painting, music, dance, drama, films and television, etc. came into practice. And in this way, writing of histories of various subjects just like literature, architecture, sculpture, painting, dancing, and drama, films, television, etc. came into practice. Here we finish our first lesson. Now today's homework for you is to complete question number A, B and question number 2. Question number 1, A, B and question number 2 in your notebook.